And it says they have a king over them. And as Sean already mentioned, that king is named Abaddon in the Hebrew, which is the word for destruction, and also a word for a bottomless pit that's in the earth. Apollyon in the Greek, and that also means to destroy in the Greek. And we would say that is the beast of the pit, and he reigns for 42 months. As I said and mentioned, Revelation 9:11 tells us he comes up out of this bottomless pit. Revelation 11:7, there it is again, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. Revelation 17:8 again, the beast that you saw was and is not and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. So I I interpret that to mean that he was and is not, meaning he was alive at one point and he's not anymore, but he will be alive in the world of the living again when he ascends up out of this bottomless pit. For anybody that may not be familiar, we understand the biblical creation model enclosed by layers of heavens with a circular plane of the earth up above an underworld, right? Subterranean compartments. There's two or multiple for the souls of the dead where they're preserved until the resurrection and judgment. But then there's this lower compartment known as Tartarus in the Greek and Abaddon in the Hebrew. We would say this is where he comes up out of. As we mentioned, he's named. He's given a name that I never hear. The people that talk about the RCC, the Roman Catholic Church, the Islam, the Elon, I never see anybody mention this name that we're given. But when you look at the history of that name, the Greeks, the Romans, they believed in their pantheon of gods, and Zeus's right-hand man would have been Apollo.
We could resume the dream of Apollo. The goal of SpaceX really was to make as much progress as possible to advance rocket technology to the point where hopefully we can establish a colony on Mars. Dream of Apollo.
I was sort of thinking, well, is there some way to reignite the dream of Apollo? And I thought, well, it was maybe a question of, like, we'd lost the will to explore it. But I actually think that my original premise was wrong. We had not lost the will to explore, but people did not think there was a way. And then SpaceX is about helping make life multiplanetary and doing what we can to continue the dream of Apollo and ultimately make a contribution to life becoming multiplanetary.
Let's talk.
Guys, I'm late. I'm late, but I have some comments. So here we go. Here in the book of Jasher, chapter 9, starting in verse 25, it says, "And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into heaven. And all these people and all the families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, We will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building." So King Nimrod wanted to ascend into heaven. In the book of Enoch, the Watchers, they were given some judgments. And in chapter 10, in verse 11, "And the Lord said unto Michael, Go bind Semyaza and his associates, who have united themselves with women, so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever." So 70 generations from Enoch happens to be when Jesus was alive. Jesus was 70 generations after Enoch, and Enoch was seventh from Adam. And so this seems significant to me. If Enoch was shown the Lord saying to Michael to bind them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, then they were in Sheol, or as Wes mentioned, underneath Sheol, maybe Tartarus, or some other names, I think. But my thinking is that biblical cosmology today might be a little different than it was before those 70 generations were up. And in my understanding, those 70 generations would have been when Jesus descended into the heart of the earth when he was crucified. And just a little more information on that. This is from the Forgotten Books of Eden at sacredtext.com. This is from the first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 42, I think it is. Then came the word of God to Adam and said unto him, O Adam, as to what thou sayest, bring me into a land where there is rest. It is not another land than this, but it is the kingdom of heaven, where alone there is rest. But thou canst not make thy entrance into it at present, but only after thy judgment is past and fulfilled. Then will I make thee go up into the kingdom of heaven, thee and thy righteous seed, and I will give thee and them the rest that thou askest for at present. And if thou saidest, give me the water of life, that I may drink and live, it cannot be this day, but on the day that I shall descend into hell, and break the gates of brass, and bruise in pieces the kingdoms of iron. Then will I in mercy save thy soul and the souls of the righteous, to give them rest in my garden, and that shall be when the end of the world is come. So I think, I honestly think that I've been maybe understanding biblical cosmology in a different way, because I think Jesus led those fallen angels that were bound for 70 generations, he led them off to the abyss of fire. It says, in those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire. So that was after the 70 generations, then the judgment forever, or that is forever and ever, is consummated. So I think Jesus led them off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and prison in which they shall be confined forever. And Wes also mentioned the souls in Sheol before the resurrection. Well, I understand that differently a little bit than I used to. That's not the right... Let's see here. I guess I will just go right here. Matthew 27, there is a resurrection of the saints. So I can't ignore it. And I think right now, from Adam until Jesus, I think all those people, the righteous people, I think he took them up into the kingdom of heaven, where alone there is rest. When he gave up the ghost, verse 50 in Matthew 27, Jesus said, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost, and behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose and came up out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. Now when the centurion and they that were with him watching Jesus saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, truly this was the Son of God. So their hearts sunk when they saw all those. They saw supernatural things happening, and they saw a resurrection of people out of their graves. So if that was the case, that also goes right along with the abyss of fire, with those fallen angels being in the abyss of fire. Now, where is the abyss of fire? That is also, I think, somewhat controversial, but I think it's also something that maybe biblical cosmology includes, but it's not maybe acknowledged right now. but I guess I don't know that. So let's look at Enoch chapter 18, because that's where he goes and he sees this abyss of fire. And we'll look at it, chapter 18, towards the end here. Verse 11, I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, like towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond that abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it, and there was no water upon it, and no birds, but it was a waste and horrible place. I saw there 7 stars, like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the angel said, this place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times. And he was wroth with them and bound them till the time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years. And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. Here shall they stand to the day of the great judgment, in which they shall be judged till they are made an end of. So, in my understanding, these are the Genesis 6 angels, and that is who Michael was commanded to bind, and they were given 2 judgments. One was 70 generations long, and then there was another one in the abyss of fire. Well, let me just give you my idea about the abyss of fire. This place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven, and the stars which roll over the fire. Let me just show you something. The stars which roll over the fire. And let me explain something about the solar system. The reason why we're taught, the reason why those are orbiting the sun is because of gravity, and they're being pulled towards the sun. And so the physics of it, and this has to come down to space is fake. But I don't think it's fake. It's not NASA faking anything. It's NASA going into an abyss, and even the physics that they claim, if you notice the people on the space station, the astronauts, any astronaut, they're always floating. And the reason they're floating is because they're falling perpetually. Anything in orbit, that's what an orbit is. Anything in orbit is falling perpetually around something larger, like the moons of Jupiter would be orbiting Jupiter. They'd be going around it. Well, that sounds to me like they're rolling over a fire, and that it's a judgment, and they are bound in a prison. Remember in Jasher chapter 9, remember the families divided themselves in 3 parts, and they all wanted to ascend into heaven, but the second one said, we will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. Think of Starlink. See, like, these people think they're ascending into heaven, but they're actually going to a bottomless place. It's a dark place. It's the firmament. And it's a place that has no foundation. It's a celestial place. And men have, Apollo, they've learned how to go into it. They've been given a key to it. And so that's, in my opinion, what we're dealing with.
Is there death? I don't know. Is that death? Is that the way death is? Well, and it's gone. But to see the blue color go whoop by, and now you're staring into blackness. Oh, it's blue sky. And then suddenly you shoot through it all of a sudden, as though you whip off a sheet off you when you're asleep, and you're looking into blackness, into black ugliness. And you look down, there's the blue down there, and the black up there, and it's there. Is there death? I don't know. Is that death? Is that the way death is? Whoop! And it's gone. Like a beat, and suddenly you're through the blue. And you're into black. And you're into, it's mysterious and galaxies and things. But what you see is black. And what you see down there is light. And that's the difference. And not to have this, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the enormity and the quickness and the suddenness of life and death. And oh my God. It's something.
It's so beautiful.
Beautiful, yes, beautiful in its way, but...
No, I mean your words.
Oh, my words.
It's just amazing. What you were saying about shooting through it so fast.
So quickly, 50 miles.
Then you're just in blackness.
You're in death.
Yeah.
The moment
This is life.
This is life, and that's death. And it's in an instant, you go, wow, that's death. That's what I saw.
That's amazing.
Is the death around the earth that's startling. How this beautiful, shining oasis of life is there naked in the middle of pitch black death.
You're in death.
Yeah.
The moment
This is life.
This is life, and that's death. And it's in an instant, you go, wow, that's death. That's what I saw.
That's amazing.
The weird part about it is space is so incredibly black, so incredibly dark. It's a bottomless pit of deep black, almost so deep it almost has a texture when you look at it.
Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. The blackness of darkness forever. Well, I believe he's clearly talking about hell. Because in the Bible, there's a place where there's darkness forever. And it's called hell and the lake of fire.
Is there death? I don't know. Is that death? Is that the way death is? Whoop, and it's gone.
And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities.